Thank you, Steve. Good luck, my friend.
Which button is it?
It's this one goes forward and that one goes back.
Hopefully we won't have to go back.
So just mic to your mouth, mic to your mouth.
Yeah. Commentators curse on the first slide there. Hello. Thank you for being here and being present. I'm Shane. I'm one half of Sceal Bakery currently. But before that, I was many things. I was an engineer. I made wings of airplanes in Airbus in Wales. And even before that, I was a builder. And even before that, I was a farmer. I grew up in Wales. I grew up in Laois. And I really grew up in Wales when I had to fend for myself over there, but that's it, further down the line. I'm from a very big family, and Irish hospitality is at the heart of a very big family. My grandmother had 17 kids on my mother's side, and my grandmother on my father's side had 15 kids. So I have over 100 first cousins, if you want to do the math. So food is obviously centric to that whole arrangement, but I guess I grew up surrounded by a farm and food being produced and cooked for the masses. Basically, my grandmother taught me everything I know about cooking, and I say cooking, she didn't teach me about being a chef or being a baker. She taught me about cooking, which encompasses for me everything about hospitality and giving and just nurturing people and feeding them. And so after school, I would spend my evenings or afternoons on our kitchen counter learning how to cook and make brown bread, make stews. She basically had this just a knowledge about how to whip something up out of nothing. But she also had, my uncle grew tons of carrots. And so there was carrots in everything. And to this day, I love carrots. But that's me anyway. And I also love bread. Partially because that's kind of one of the first things I learned how to make from a recipe. And Granny had this plastic basin that she would mix everything in. And she didn't use a recipe herself. She just kind of eyeballed everything and would measure it in her hand. So instead of teaspoons, she used the palm of her hand for the baking soda and for the salt and all that sort of stuff. And she would just she would use her intuition then to feel out the texture, how much buttermilk to add into the dough. And she just knew what it should feel like after years and years and years of intuition and experience and practice. And then, so I went through secondary school, kind of got interested in biology, and my favorite subject was engineering. And I worked as a part-time as a builder with my uncles, because if you weren't farming, you were building. And I sort of realized early on that I was going to either become a builder or an engineer or something got to do with my hands. But I followed the path of the engineer because electronics and engineering was one of my favorite subjects in secondary school. And I just was good at it. I was undiagnosed dyslexic, and I didn't do very good in leaving, yada, yada, yada. I ended up being sort of this is what I'm kind of good at, electronics, engineering. And then I got a job in Airbus in Wales. It led to me working in an office and then not really enjoying that. And it took me a really exciting kind of weekend in Amsterdam to realize that I was really unhappy and needed some sort of change, because being stuck behind a computer was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with my hands because I'd done that my whole life, and that was exciting and interesting and gave me fulfillment, and it gave me a sense of achievement. Whereas when I was on the computer, just kind of doing the paperwork for concessions, which were fixing problems, it just felt like I was a bit of a cog in the wheel in the machine. So I quit that job and moved back home. and got back into building, as you do, because you don't really know what else to do. And then that was about 2008, 2007, 2008. Bought my first van, started buying loads of tools, and got my first few jobs and started building up a customer base and getting some word of mouth going. And then all of a sudden there was this mad thing called a recession, and I found myself out of work. And then I started asking myself, while I had a lot of time on my hands, what kind of interests do I have? I suppose I should click on here. I have to remember to click and stay on time. So my whole life I'd been feeding myself and cooking. Like, I got into cooking for our family because in our house there's a rule: if you cook, you don't clean. So I hate cleaning. So like naturally I like gravitated towards cooking. And so I have 5 siblings, and like, so I started cooking, like using all the skills I learned from my grandmother basically to feed the family and avoid the dishes. And so when I had that time, a reflective space, there was like 6 months period basically where I was out of work, and I realized I could go back to college and I could do something that I wasn't able to, get the points for originally in the Leaving Cert. And that was culinary arts. And that kind of led me to this wonderful lady, Charlotte. And on day 1 of culinary arts, so I applied for culinary arts and got in on a like mature student application. And on day 1, I told Charlotte the story of my uncle as a carrot farmer as we were chopping vegetables in our kitchen class. And I cut myself, as you do when you're not really paying attention. And she put a plaster on my finger, and from day 1 we were kind of inseparable and best friends. Oh. And after that we kind of got closer and closer, as it inevitably happens. We started working in some restaurants in Dublin as well, part-time while we were studying. So like Rustic Stone, Pastry Social, and other places around the city. And we began getting closer and closer. And then eventually we graduated and traveled to San Francisco, where we went from being chefs to honing our skills as bakers. And so we spent a year over there, graduate visa, and we worked in some amazing bakeries. So basically back then it was about 2014, 2015, and San Francisco was just the mecca for bakeries, and like everybody who wanted to learn did their pilgrimage journey over to San Francisco to learn from the best. So I originally did a stage in Tartine Bakery, very famous bakery, very good book if anyone's looking to just get started with sourdough. It's a really great starting point. But through getting to know the bakers there, they kind of encouraged me to get a job with one of their old head bakers, Nathan Yanko, in a bakery called MH Bread and Butter. And I applied for a job with Nathan and got the job, thankfully. And his bakery was amazing. It was a bakery cafe space with a restaurant, and he did a huge amount of wholesale, so they were even producing more breads every day than Tartine was at that time. So I got to learn from Nathan, who was this mad head. He was like a ultra runner was his main passion, and then bread was his second passion. So like he would come into work and do like a 4 or 5 hour shift, then go off at 7 o'clock in the morning and run for like 50, 60 kilometers and come back in and then do another 5 or 6 hours in the bakery. And he would do like 100 kilometer runs at the weekend, and like slept in a oxygen deprivation tank or like a tent to basically increase his stamina. But his whole mentality, his whole ethos was like, we have to be first. We have to do everything like and compete and be first. And his approach was very scientific, and I learned a lot from him while we were there for the whole year. And a lot of that appealed to me, the scientific background, the scientific approach. And I think I just learned a lot in 1 year with him. Um, and then we came home. So while we were over there, Charlotte was also working in some amazing bakeries, developing her skills as a pastry chef. And we kind of threw around a few cheesy ideas mostly my ideas for a name for the bakery for when we were going to be coming back home, because we knew that there was nothing at home as good back then as like what we've experienced or what we worked in the US. So I kind of like was testing the waters with a few names, and my friend Keith had a restaurant or a cafe called Fia, and I was like, well, maybe we should do some sort of Irish name. It kind of is trendy right now. And so I kind of like threw around a few ideas, like, because I love puns. Basically what I did the whole time in culinary arts was just make up food puns. And one of the food puns was a loaf story instead of a love story. And it was on Sceal Lynn. But she was like, no, that's far too cheesy. That's disgraceful, like we can't. Everybody will slag us. And so she cut it down to Sceal, and I guess we started Sceal when we came home, and we cleared a space in the back of our parents' house, as you do when you have nowhere else to go and no budget, and we set up a production kitchen in this. It looks really dreamy because my friend Shantanu is a great photographer, but this is a tiny little space in the back of her parents' house, and sorry now, broke my rule. So we did a market, the amazing the flea market, the Dublin flea market. Does anybody remember the flea? Yeah, such a great loss for this city. Yeah. The people who set this market up, who put the energy into curating this market, are great. And this was a huge importance for a lot of food businesses, but businesses in general, not just food businesses, to get like a springboard. And it was such a great space, and it's such a pity that this has not been supported more and still a thing. But basically, this was the starting point for Sceal. They are the same people who own Fumbly Cafe, and I used to work as a chef there at one stage, and they gave us the space to express ourselves and to offer what we had to offer, to set up a Christmas market, and that was just enough money to buy ovens and all the other bits of equipment that we needed to set up Sceal in 2016, 2017. And ever since, we've been building it up through the hard work and dedication, and mainly the kind of organization skills of Charlotte, keeping me on track. So I have a lot to kind of she should really be up here doing the talk, because I owe a lot to Charlotte. She does a hell of a job. But I love it because you're transforming these simple ingredients into something that is so wholesome, and it's like it's almost embedded in our DNA. Bread is just like, if you were having dinner and you don't have a slice of bread on the table, or a piece of bread on the table, or a loaf of bread on the table, it's like the table's not set. Do you know that kind of way? Like, I feel like I've been talking a lot about bread my whole life, and to be able to make it and offer it to people is just a great privilege. But we set up Sceal, and we've built it up to a certain point, and we started off basically on a friend's farm in Glasnevin, which was this dreamy little porta-cabin bakery, and that lasted about 8 months until we outgrew that, and then we moved to a production space in Spade Enterprise Centre in Smithfield, and then we started doing a lot of markets essentially, and we've built it up and built it up, thanks to a lot of help basically from friends and family and customers, and just a lot of, I think, long days and hard work. But it's just an expression of like things that we love to make and offer to people, I guess. So yeah, my advice, what would that be to anyone aspiring to like create their own business or even get into the food sort of arena, which is quite a difficult arena, but I guess it's not, like, I'm a great example. It's not impossible, considering, but you just have to put in hard work, long hours, obviously partner up with someone quite similar to Charlotte, who will curate a beautiful looking Instagram or put the best words to describe a delicious pastry, or just keep you motivated. Like when you feel like giving up, she's there to remind you what you're doing it for and what you get up at like 2 a.m. for and all the rest. A broad training in food is quite important if that's what you're trying to achieve, or the avenue you want to go down in. I would recommend it to anyone to do a course in culinary arts. That's the course that we studied, and it gives you a very broad range of an appreciation for food, more so than, you know, the skills of a chef. It's like history, it's like flavors, it's the whole package, basically. And like there are other quick courses to do, such as Ballymaloo and some other like more focused courses, but I would recommend that. And to just get obsessed, to just like, I kind of got obsessed by coffee during lockdown when everyone else was getting obsessed by sourdough, because I got obsessed by sourdough a long, long time ago. Basically, when I came back from third year internship, at the end of third year, we had to do an internship for culinary arts. So I traveled to River College in the UK for 3 months, and basically at the end of the 3 months, I knew I wanted to write a paper about bread, because they were making bread and teaching bread courses there on a daily basis, and it's something I'd never seen before in a restaurant. Everybody else just kind of orders it in from a really good bakery. And so I guess when I got back, I wanted to research and write a paper about sourdough bread, because that's the style of bread they were making there. And I had a stack of bread books. I had like 11 or 12 different bread books, and I came across this book, Tartine's bread book. It's like my Bible now at this stage. And I put all the other books back and got obsessed by sourdough. And it's essentially a new type, like new, everybody knows about it now, but like before the pandemic, it was new enough. And but back then, it was very exciting for me, and I went deep, deep down into the rabbit hole and explored that fully and wrote a paper about it, but also taught myself how to make it at the same time. So I was kind of like doing the theory and the practical at the same time, and like that kind of solidified it and made me really good at it. And it became my passion, my obsession, and my friends were all sick of listening to me talk about it. And my housemates were delighted, because they were getting fresh bread every morning. And I would come home from doing a shift in a restaurant, no joke, and I'd be like 2 a.m. and kind of like trying to wind down. You know, after a restaurant shift, you're kind of like a little bit wired and the adrenaline is pumping and you wouldn't be able to sleep. So I'd make my bread and turn on the oven and have a slice of bread fresh from the oven before going to bed. And my housemates would come down and be like, what are you doing out here? And then they'd join in and they'd all enjoy the benefits of my crazy obsession. And then, yeah, so the recipe for success in my mind is like any recipe, I suppose it's a formula, and what you put in, you get out. And that's been true for anything that we make in the bakery. Is if you put shit in, you'll get shit out. So if you use the best possible ingredients, and you'll get the best possible result. So we try to maintain that we use the best possible ingredients, locally sourced as possible, as seasonal as possible, and as delicious as possible. That's always in the forefront of our mind when we design anything in Sceal. We apply kind of like a chef's perspective or an approach to our recipe development. And so, yeah, you need 300 grams or 400 grams of hard work, a hell of a lot of determination, a little pinch of social responsibility doesn't go astray, a lot of early mornings for bakeries especially, long days, like any business. You'll spend a long time just doing the finer details, answering emails, whatever it is, whatever it takes, like 7 days a week. For the first 4 or 5 years, like I don't feel like we had a day off, especially Charlotte, who looks after our Instagram, and there's a lot of extra work and admin involved. And then, yeah, I guess a little pinch of luck as well doesn't hurt. So we've had a lot of luck along the way. And then building a team will be our next big project, I guess. We're working on opening a space in Greystones. We're moving up. I guess we're like moving from a production kitchen in an enterprise center into our own bakery space, which will also be a cafe space. And I guess it's not too dissimilar to Henny's Teeth here tonight in terms of its size and the fact that it's lovely, like loads of windows and lovely natural light and all the rest. So yeah, we're hiring. Thank you very much for coming along this journey and listening to my story. But also, yeah, I can't wait to share the next chapter of the story with you along the way. Cheers.
Nailed it.